wind rolled low across the empty flats, carrying the smell of iron and rain that never came. The sun had not yet burned the night away, but the dust already shimmered like hot coals. Clara May stumbled from the crooked doorway of the shack, bare feet scraping on dry boards. Her cheek carried the faint purple bloom of a bruise. Behind her came the heavy tread of Jed Coulter, stepfather, gambler, drunk, the kind of man whose shadow seemed to stain the ground. The screen door banged once, then again. "Keep moving," he barked, voice soaked in whiskey. Clara tightened her shawl. "I didn't take your money." Jed's laugh was a low rattle. "Liar. You breathe and you steal." He shoved her into the yard. Dust rose around their boots like smoke from a dying fire. In his fist he held a length of faded burial cloth, stiff from years in a trunk. He flung it open, white against the gray dawn. Her voice cracked. "Don't cover me like I'm dead already." Jed stepped closer, eyes flat as a rattler's. "Dead women don't talk." The cloth fluttered in the wind, brushing her shoulders. Clara shivered but did not flinch. The breeze caught a strand of her hair, lifted it like a torch of copper in the early light. For a heartbeat, the prairie seemed to hold its breath. He pressed the fabric to her chest. "This is all you're worth." She jerked back, chin high. "You won't bury me." Jed's jaw worked. He spat in the dirt, the sound sharp as a gunshot. The lantern swinging from the porch cast a long, trembling shadow across the yard, cutting his face in half, one side dark, one side aflame. He raised his revolver just enough for her to see the steel catch that lantern glow. "You run," he whispered, "and the coyotes finish what I start." The morning light sharpened, painting the horizon in streaks of blood and gold. Clara's heartbeat thundered louder than the wind. Somewhere beyond the sage and sand, Lone Hawk cried, high, defiant. Jed grinned, teeth yellow as old ivory. "Move," he said. Clara stepped forward, each footfall a quiet vow. He would not write her ending. The desert stretched endless, a sheet of copper under a merciless sun. Clara's wrists burned where the rope bit deep, the coarse hemp already slick with blood. Jed had dragged her miles from the shack, his horse kicking dust like smoke from a blacksmith's forge. Now she stood lashed to a leaning fence post, half-rotted wood creaking in the wind, while his silhouette dwindled across the horizon. His parting words clung to the heat. "Buzzards'll sing you home." Then only the hiss of sand. Clara tugged the rope until her shoulders screamed. Each pull only tightened the knot. The sun climbed higher, an unforgiving eye. Sweat stung her bruises and the dry air cracked her lips. Somewhere above, a hawk wheeled lazy circles, its cry a slow funeral hymn. She closed her eyes and heard her mother's voice, soft as a riverbank memory. "Keep breathing, girl, keep breathing." Her throat rasped. "I'm not done." The afternoon wind shifted, scouring her skin with fine grit. Shadows stretched long and thin. She twisted her wrists again, pain sharp as a knife edge. The rope gave a fraction. Hope, small as a match flame, flickered. Far off, a coyote yipped, high, hungry. Another answered. The sound crawled along her spine. "Lord," she whispered, "don't let him win." A gust toppled a clump of dry sage, rolling it across the sand like a ghost. Clara leaned her weight, grinding the rope against the splintered post. Fibers snapped, tiny threads of freedom. The sun bled into orange as the sky cooled to violet. Night was coming fast, and with it the predators. Her knees buckled. She sagged, panting, forehead to wood. For a heartbeat she thought of surrender. Let the dark swallow her. Let the coyotes feed. But then the memory of Jed's grin flashed and a new fire rose. She pushed back, muscles trembling. Another twist, another snap. The rope loosened enough for one wrist to slide free. She bit down on a cry of pain, wrenched the other hand loose, and stumbled forward into the cooling dusk. The first stars blinked awake above her, sharp and cold. Behind her the fence post groaned and toppled, a dry crack like a breaking curse. Clara staggered toward the far hills, every step a vow carved in dust. She would live, and Jed would face the reckoning. Night settled over the desert like a dark quilt stitched with cold stars. Clara staggered through sage and shadow, breath ragged, every step a prayer and a promise. The moon climbed higher, silvering the sand until it glowed faint as old bone. Somewhere behind her, coyotes yipped, a lonely chorus that pushed her forward. A distant flicker cut through the night. At first it seemed a trick of tired eyes, but then she heard it, the soft creak of saddle leather, the low snort of a horse. A lantern bobbed on the far ridge, its light swinging in a slow golden arc. Clara froze, heart hammering. Friend or hunter? She crouched behind a mesquite bush, trembling. The rider drew closer, hooves muffled in the sand. A deep, steady voice carried across the stillness. "Easy there, girl. Ain't looking for trouble." The lantern swung higher, revealing a broad-shouldered man astride a chestnut gelding, weathered hat, dust-worn duster, eyes like storm clouds. Rancher Elias Boone. He reined in, gaze sweeping the brush. "I see you hidin'. Cold night for a coyote." Clara stepped out, arms half raised, the moon catching the dried blood on her wrists. "Please," she rasped. "Don't send me back." Boone's jaw tightened as he saw the rope burns. He swung down in one fluid motion, boots crunching softly. "Who did this?" "My stepfather," she whispered. "Jed Coulter." Boone's eyes darkened, but his voice stayed low, calm as a river. "You're safe now." He pulled a canteen from his saddle. A bag, held it to her lips. Water, cool, metallic, washed the desert dust from her throat. She drank until the world steadied. "Can you ride?" he asked. I think so." He lifted her gently onto the saddle, his hands firm but careful, the leather warm beneath her. The horse shifted, then stilled under his quiet murmur. Boone swung up behind her, the lantern hanging from the horn casting a circle of soft gold around them. "Hold on," he said. As they rode, the wind carried the scent of mesquite smoke from a distant fire. Clara leaned against his chest, the steady beat of his heart a rhythm stronger than fear. Behind them, the empty desert swallowed Jed's cruelty whole. Ahead, the faint outline of a ranch house glimmered under the moon, a promise of shelter and the first taste of hope. The ranch house sat like a lone sentinel against the dark horizon, timber walls glowing amber from the fireplace inside. Clara stumbled down from the saddle, legs trembling like the last leaves of autumn. Boone guided her gently, steadying her with a hand calloused from decades of work, but soft with care. The scent of smoke and pine hit her first, a warmth that felt almost sacred after the desert's cruelty. Inside, the fire crackled, casting long shadows that danced across the rough-hewn walls. Clara sank onto a chair, wrapping the quilt Boone draped over her shoulders. Her hands, scarred and trembling, clutched the fabric like a lifeline. Boone moved quietly, stoking the embers, the glow painting his weathered face with a mixture of worry and resolve. Her voice was low, trembling. He said I was dead already." Boone's jaw tightened. "That man's no kin of yours. Not any more." Clara's eyes filled with tears. I thought I was done for." "You're stronger than he knows," Boone said, kneeling beside her. "And you're not done. Not tonight. Not ever." A gust rattled the shutters, a reminder that the world outside still held danger. Clara's gaze drifted to the window, to the darkened horizon where Jed's shadow might still lurk. Fear coiled in her stomach, sharp and bitter, but the firelight on her face seemed to push it back, a small shield against the dark. Boone handed her a cup of water, his hand brushing hers in a grounding gesture. "Drink. You need strength." The silence stretched between them, heavy but safe. Clara sipped slowly, feeling warmth creep back into her chest, mingling with the thrum of hope she hadn't felt in weeks. Outside, the wind whispered through the cottonwoods, carrying a song of watchfulness. Boone went to the window, scanning the shadows. "He'll be back," he muttered, voice low, like a gun held at the ready. Clara's fingers tightened on the quilt. "Then I'll be ready." Boone nodded, a shadow of a smile breaking the stoicism of his face. "That's the spirit. You'll stand tall, and when he comes, he won't find the same girl he left for dead." The fire crackled louder, embers rising like sparks of defiance. For the first time in days, Clara felt it. Safety. fragile but real, and the distant stirrings of courage ready to rise. The ranch, the fire, Boone's quiet strength. It was a shield against the night, a promise that tomorrow held something better. Dawn broke slow and heavy over the rolling plains, dust and gold mingling as the first light struck Boone's ranch. The wind carried a faint tang of smoke and earth whispering through the sagebrush like a warning. Clara stood at the edge of the porch, quilt wrapped tight around her shoulders, eyes scanning the horizon. Her stepfather's tracks were there, deep in the sand, jagged as a broken promise. Boone appeared behind her, boots crunching in the frost-hardened dirt. "He's been here," he said, voice low, measured, "and he won't forget you." Clara wallowed, throat dry. "What do we do?" "We wait for law," Boone said, sweeping his gaze across the hills. "Sheriff Graves. Town's not far. He's a good man, steady hand." The wind picked up, rattling the boards of the porch, carrying a warning in its whistle. Clara clenched her fists, dust curling around her boots. "I don't want to wait," she said, voice sharp with fear and fury. Boone rested a hand on her shoulder, firm, grounding. "Waiting's sometimes the only way to win. You don't face a rattler head-on. You wait for the right moment. And the law brings the moment." Far on the ridge, a movement caught her eye, a shadow crossing the sand, tall and deliberate. Jed Coulter, hat brim low, rifle slung casual, the grin gone, replaced with the hunger of a predator. He paused, scanning the land, then disappeared over the rise. Clara's heart thundered. "He's testing us," Boone murmured. "Seeing if you're still prey." Clara squared her shoulders, chest tight. "Then I won't be. Not anymore." Boone nodded, mounting his horse with practiced ease. Lantern in hand, he prepared to ride into Dry Creek, where Sheriff Graves would listen and act. "Hold tight," he said, eyes meeting hers. "We get the law on our side, and he doesn't get the final say." As they rode through the golden haze of morning, Clara felt the tension in her limbs begin to ease, replaced by something sharper: purpose. The prairie stretched wide, a reminder of freedom just beyond reach. Every hoofbeat was a promise. Jed Coulter would be held accountable, and for the first time in weeks, Clara's spirit lifted on the wind. Above them, a hawk circled, wings wide, riding the currents of the rising sun. And somewhere in the distance, the sheriff waited, the scales of justice poised, ready to tip. Hope, fragile and luminous, began to break across the horizon. Night fell over the plains like a heavy velvet curtain, swallowing the last glow of sunset. The ranch lay quiet, shadows stretching long across the ground, broken only by the flicker of the fireplace through the cabin window. Clara moved cautiously, her hands brushing the rough wood of the fence as she checked each gate. Boone had taught her well. Every latch, every lock, every angle of approach. Tonight, the threat was real, and she could feel it in her bones. Far on the ridge, torches flickered. Jed Coulter and two of his saloon ruffians, their faces hidden by brimmed hats and malice. The flicker of firelight danced across their guns as they plotted, voices low but sharp. "She's ours," Jed whispered, teeth clenched. "She'll pay for this." "Careful, Jed," one man muttered. "That rancher's a storm waiting to strike." Jed spat into the dirt. "Let him come. Ain't nothing strong enough to stop me." Back at the ranch, Clara loaded her rifle, hands steady despite the pounding of her heart. Boone moved silently beside her, checking the barricades. "Remember," he said, voice a calm river over turbulent rocks. "We wait for the right moment. Don't let their fire scare you." Clara nodded, jaw tight. The wind shifted, carrying the faint metallic scent of horses and gun oil. She crouched by the porch, eyes fixed on the ridge. Shadows grew long, blending with the brush. A coyote's yip echoed in the distance, sharp and lonely. Boone's hand brushed her shoulder. "That's your signal," he said. "Hold fast." Clara gritted her teeth and whispered, "I won't be buried tonight." From the ridge, Jed's gang moved closer, torches bobbing like hellfire on the dark earth. The first sparks of confrontation glimmered as Boone and Clara readied themselves. Every creak of the fence, every rustle of the sage felt magnified in the stillness. The night was alive with danger, yet within the cabin walls, a fragile hope glimmered, a promise that justice, courage, and the law could still prevail. Above them, the stars blinked cold and distant, indifferent witnesses to the storm approaching. Clara's grip tightened on her rifle, Boone's eyes narrowed, and somewhere deep in the desert, the wind carried the promise of reckoning. Tonight, the ranch would stand, or Jed Coulter would prove that even the darkness could not bury what refused to die. The night was thick and heavy, moonlight slanting through cottonwoods, painting the ranch in silver and shadow. Jed Coulter and his gang surged forward like predators, torches flickering, boots kicking up dust that clung to the cold wind. The air carried the acrid scent of gun oil and fear, a mix Clara could taste on her tongue. Boone crouched low behind the porch railing, rifle steady in his hands. Clara mirrored him, every muscle taut, eyes fixed on the approaching figures. "Wait for the right moment," Boone murmured. His voice was calm, yet the tension in his shoulders betrayed the danger closing fast. The first torchlight broke over the fence line. Jed's voice cut through the dark. "She's mine. Always will be." Clara's stomach lurched, but she didn't flinch. She aimed, finger poised on the trigger. Boone's eyes met hers. "Not tonight. Not ever again," he said, voice low and certain. Gunfire erupted, sharp cracks that echoed across the plains. Embers flew from the porch fire, smoke curling in spirals toward the night sky. Horses screamed, stamping in terror as shadows leapt between the trees. Clara fired once, heart hammering, smoke stinging her eyes. The men faltered, taken aback by her defiance. Jed swung his rifle, fury burning in his gaze. "You'll regret this," he bellowed. Boone stepped into view, stance wide, revolver raised. "Regret is already yours, Jed. You lost the girl and now you'll lose yourself." The gang pressed close. "Sir," torches flashing, rifles raised. Clara ducked behind a barrel, reloading with hands shaking but determined. Boone's calm authority cut through the chaos, guiding each breath, each movement. "The knee,